Donald Trump spoke about new tough sanctions against any country in the world that continues to trade with Russia, which would allow the Russian Federation to be driven into total isolation. Donald Trump supported a bill on sanctions against Russia's partners and friends. It provides for import duties of up to 500% for countries doing business with Russia. Trump told reporters he'd be satisfied with the bill and said Iran should also be added to the list of countries under the new restrictions. And in fact, this will really be a significant blow to Russia's economy. After all, let me remind you that the sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil have not yet officially come into force, but they have already made India and even China refuse Russian oil. Well, and Turkey has come under pressure from the White House to take the same step. Still, it's important to closely watch Donald Trump's statements. Because at the moment, such a call for secondary sanctions looks like a purely political statement, which will not have such dramatic consequences as it might seem at first glance. And Trump doesn't mention Iran here for no reason. So what does Donald Trump's statement mean? Let's figure it out together. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and write any detailed comment under this episode. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or a paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. Choose any convenient format. I appreciate any support you can give. And you can also use the QR code on your screens. So, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, supported the adoption of a bill to impose sanctions on countries that continue to cooperate with Russia. He noted that representatives of the Republican Party are currently working on the initiative. Here is the quote. "As you know, I proposed this," says Trump, "so any country doing business with Russia will be subjected to it. But to be fair, it wasn't Trump who proposed this at all. It's an initiative from 2 senators, 1 Republican and 1 Democrat. But anyway, according to Trump, Iran could also be among the countries affected by future restrictions. I want to emphasize that we're talking about a bill that was proposed in April by senators from the Republican and Democratic parties, Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. The initiative introduces 500% tariffs on imports. The Kremlin noted that Russia can no longer be intimidated by sanctions, since the country is already used to them, and the Ministry of Finance promised to diversify the supply of banned goods. But Russians said the same thing about sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil, but in reality, this led to a collapse in oil revenues. And today, Bloomberg reports that the price of Russian oil last week fell to its lowest level in more than 2.5 years. In particular, the price of Russian Urals oil at the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk last Thursday dropped to $36.6 per barrel. This is the lowest level since March 2021. A similar trend is being observed in the Baltic Sea, which indicates that the drop in prices is not only related to the strikes by the armed forces of Ukraine on ports in the Black Sea. Last Friday, global oil prices jumped by about 2% due to concerns about supply stability, after the Russian port of Novorossiysk suspended oil exports following an attack by Ukrainian drones. In reality, Russian oil is getting cheaper due to increased discounts for buyers. The discount on Urals oil at the end of last week rose to $23.5 per barrel compared to Brent, which is the highest level since June 2023. And the most interesting thing is that the discounts increased significantly after the administration of President Donald Trump added Rosneft and Lukoil to the blacklist on October 22 to increase pressure on the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin to stop the war against Ukraine. But the most important thing is that these sanctions, I emphasize, will come into effect on November 21. But the demand for Russian oil on international markets has already dropped, and some oil refineries in China, India and Turkey are already suspending purchases of Russian oil and looking for alternative sources of supply. And here are a couple of figures for you. Last week, Russia offered a discount on its oil of as much as $23.5 per barrel. For comparison, at the beginning of November, the discounts were $13.14 per barrel. Before United States sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft on October 22, prices were $11 per barrel. After Trump's announcement, they rose to $23.5 per barrel. So, does just the warning about imposing sanctions already lead to consequences? After all, let me remind you, Trump has even postponed some of the sanctions against Lukoil, but the damage has already been done. The same may apply to Trump's statements about secondary sanctions. These senators, let me remind you, planned to pass a bill on sanctions against Russia's trading partners even before the G7 summit, which took place in mid-June this year. But Trump then asked to postpone the initiative to give a chance for peace talks on Ukraine. In October, the Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune stated that consideration of the bill was put on hold until Trump's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The summit between the two leaders was planned for Budapest. But, as you know, Trump cancelled it because of Moscow's maximalist demands to end the war. And a couple of days ago, the United States ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, stated that the American president would increase pressure on Putin if he does not agree to end the war in Ukraine. He emphasized that the new Washington sanction is just the beginning. Quote, Trump holds all the cards, and this is just one of them. There are many others. Well, kind of hinting that there is still this package about sanctions against Russia's partners. But we should also be critical of Donald Trump's statements because there's an inconsistency here. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping reached an agreement just 3 weeks ago and concluded a one-year trade truce. And if sanctions are imposed against Russia's partners, as proposed in the Senate, these would primarily be restrictions against China, and that would automatically break the very trade truce. And here it's worth remembering how Trump singled out Iran in this regard. He stated that Iran should also be added to this sanctions list. So it's possible that, first and foremost, to show others the seriousness of their intentions, Washington might impose separate sanctions against Iran as a partner of the Russian Federation. But this will be purely a political demonstration which may work or may not work. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Subtitles by Dima Torzok.